Please be seated.
She is the only woman on death row in the state of Oklahoma. Her trial is not in dispute because of the evidence. It is in dispute because of her underwear. Prosecutors held it up in front of the jury. They described her clothing, her hairstyles, her personal relationships. 7 Supreme Court justices later looked at that same trial and said something almost no court ever says. They said it may not have been fair, and yet her conviction still stands. This is the case of Brenda Andrew. November 2001, Oklahoma City. Rob Andrew arrived at his former family home to pick up his children for the Thanksgiving holiday. He was shot twice with a shotgun in the garage. His estranged wife, Brenda Andrew, was also shot in the arm during the incident. Prosecutors alleged that Brenda and her boyfriend, a fellow Sunday school teacher named James Pavat, had planned the killing together. Both fled to Mexico. Months later, they were arrested crossing back into Texas. Pavat was tried separately. He was convicted and sentenced to death. Brenda Andrew was also convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death in 2004. The former Oklahoma County District Attorney who oversaw the case described it simply: it was just extra ugly. Here is where this case becomes something worth examining closely. Throughout the trial, prosecutors spent extensive time on details that had nothing to do with the shooting itself. Court records show they focused on Andrew's clothing, her hairstyle, her past relationships. Witness testimony referred to her using degrading language about her appearance and behavior. Prosecutors displayed pieces of her personal clothing in front of the jury. They argued she could not control her personal choices and used that argument as part of the case for a death sentence. Andrew's legal team has argued for years that this line of prosecution had one purpose: to make the jury judge her character rather than the evidence. For 2 decades, that argument went nowhere. Then, in 2024, the United States Supreme Court agreed to look at it. In a 7-2 decision, the court ruled that Andrew could pursue her claim. The ruling found that prosecutors may have inappropriately focused on her personal life in a way that could have violated her right to a fair trial. This is a rare outcome. The Supreme Court very infrequently rules in favor of a death row inmate on any claim. Following that ruling, Andrew's case was sent back to a lower federal appeals court to formally consider whether the trial had been unfair. In January 2026, that court reached its decision. The conviction was upheld. A federal appeals court unanimously ruled that despite the concerns raised, the evidence against her was, in their words, overwhelming. Andrew's legal team has continued to pursue further appeals. There is one detail worth noting for comparison. In a separate and unrelated Oklahoma case, a woman named Christy Evans was convicted of conspiring to kill her husband. She received a sentence of life in prison, not death. Brenda Andrew remains the only woman currently on death row in the state of Oklahoma. No execution date has been set. We are not here to argue Brenda Andrews' guilt or innocence. A jury convicted her. An appeals court upheld that conviction. What we are documenting is this: 7 Supreme Court justices looked at how her trial was conducted and found enough concern to send it back for further review. The lower court reviewed it and let the sentence stand anyway. Somewhere between those 2 rulings sits a question that has followed this case for over 20 years. Was Brenda Andrew judged for what she did, or for who the prosecution decided she was? My name is 2 Tiers. We will continue following this case as it develops. Subscribe, because the next one raises the same question.